my homies. I didn't see you there. I'm just kidding. I'm being stupid because I had a lot to think about today. I really put my mental through the ringer, and not in a bad way. You know, typically when I have a kind of a workout that really requires me to think much more about the weight than just turning the brain off and having fun, letting the ego take over, it can be much more of a negative day in the initial parts of the training. You know, it's a lot more difficult to get genuinely excited, you know? And it's been a while since I've had a day where I had to step back, reevaluate what I was doing, try something new, and then almost immediately realize that it could be the next step. It actually should be the next step, even though it didn't feel as good as it typically does. You know, I know it's vague, but essentially, you know, I was talking to a homie about it, and I was just like, I'm so used to doing close grip on bench, you know, and not like close grip. I mean, just like, I normally line up I don't even know what to call it. If you bench and you know what thumb's length is, where the bumpy part starts on the bench, I would line it up with the end, like the bottom part of my nail. So just about a half, 3/4 inch more narrow than a thumb's length bench. You know, just a little bit more, it would really compress all my muscle groups and keep everything pretty tight. It'd be a good bit more shoulder dominant. And I think what was really happening was, let's look back a year, maybe a little more ago, about a year ago. Started doing this closer grip a little over a year ago, just for the sake of trying something new. For the most part, I had been doing thumb's length for so long. Hell, I used to do pinkies on the wider ring on the bar, and so I used to go actually way further than thumb's length now that I think about it. And I've never really had an issue with bench in that regard. I enjoyed feeling as explosive as I did when I would do a closer grip on bench. You know, it's kind of like treating the bench as like it's an Olympic lift, you know, rather than keeping it as a more static hold through in a consistent way. It'd be a more compressed, everything in one go, explode off your chest and hope that you make it through the grinding point kind of lift, you know? And that was all fine and dandy until, you know, you skip about 6 months later, and first time at that point, it would have been about 6.5, 7 years that I pulled my left pec, you know, right the underside of the, like right under the left side of my pec, you know, and that was all right. I was like, whatever. I've never injured my chest in my life. No biggie. We'll come back to it. I thought I was fine after like 2 weeks, because I was just more so ego trying to get back to where I was at on bench, and I was very wrong. Ended up pulling the exact same muscle again, and that was pretty deterring, because, you know, cut to 3 months later, after a lot of deloading, a lot of figuring it out, trying every which way, and, you know, I also moved to where I'm at now, so I had to use a new bench that was different in a lot of ways, because I didn't have right now we have just Olympic lifting bench barbells for the bench press, because I can't use the wider bench. My hands are quite literally baby sized. And so all these factors, and I almost pulled it the third time. Almost. I stopped myself, reevaluated, cut the weight down a good bit, and rebuilt it back up. Now, no matter what you do, if you cut the weight down, no matter how inefficient a technique seems, no matter how shitty a program appears, if you cut your weights down a certain amount and rebuild it back up, then you can still make strength without having a risk of injury. Always. I will hold true to that. When I started benching in general with a predominantly Olympic lifting program, I had to take my bench down about 40, 50 pounds and rework it back up because of how much strain it initially put on my upper body. You know, my wrists, elbows, and shoulders weren't used to that kind of technique and lockout, while also doing a much more static bench press at the same time that I had already been used to holding out. I didn't have wrist mobility back then, you know? So I I think it all kind of ties to where, if you've been around, I've mentioned how I got a bone growth on my left hand a long while ago, about around the same time that I actually changed my bench grip up. And I'm starting to realize that this change in my bench, it more so was to accessorize the part of the bench that I was limited at. You know, I think the more compressed, narrow grip made it to where the pain wasn't as bad on that left hand, and I was able to drive through it the same way that I used to. So I just kind of stopped thinking about it for a while, and that's all good and dandy. You know, look at my walkout with the squat. It used to never be an issue until the weights just got heavy enough, and now I'm at that point where the bench is heavy enough to where I kind of really need to find that near perfect technique that aligns with my body parts the best. You know, I have longer arms for sure. Doing as close a bench as I'm doing definitely takes a lot of the pressure off my chest and a lot more on my shoulders, which could be seen as really bad for Olympic lifting. I've always had a bit more pain on my left side, and in general, after I do a heavy clean and jerk day or anything with Olympic lifting and then I have to bench, it can hurt my elbows and wrists a good bit on top of the shoulders. And so today, it was kind of a leap of faith trying out that new grip. You know, it's so hard to get excited and passionate when you're embracing the advice you were literally just giving to other people. The other day, I was literally yesterday, I had a buddy of mine doing incline bench press. He has really lanky arms, longer than mine, and he was flaring his elbows out really bad too. And I was like, just widen your grip, line up your wrist with your elbow so that it doesn't hurt. And it seems so stupid for me to think that I would need the same advice because I've been benching for so long, almost 8 years. But regardless, my body's changed. The necessities that it needs is continuously becoming something different that I have to adhere to. No matter how long you lift, whether you're getting stronger, weaker, growing, shrinking even as you get older, you're going to have to adhere to what your body needs in order to match the energy that has to come with those heavy lifts, or just at least the highest intensities. You know, you're never going to have just one single great way of lifting and you'll never have to change ever again. You know, there's going to be a day where I can't do acid grass squatting. I know that. There's going to be a day where I can't Olympic lift anymore, or at least not full acid grass. It might just be only powers for a while. So it's stuff like that where I have to really pay attention and recognize where I need to put that extra effort. You know, that first day always feels so weird, you know, because especially today, like just before I get way out of hand, because I know the clean and jerk was first. Getting on the clean and jerk was already, it wasn't bad at all. Just after this whole week, my core is just pretty blasted. That was the whole point. So doing power cleans, which I really like the movement of, it feels a lot better than power snatches that I have a big personal issue with because of my wrist. But doing that with the pause split jerk really felt good to get that good technique, that good lockout. There was no pain or anything, no issues with whatever. And I ended up stopping a little early. 275 definitely isn't as heavy as I could go. I just didn't want to push my load back too hard. And again, I really wanted to give the bench some extra love today, which inadvertently ended up being the best decision because I ended up changing my technique altogether. You know, no matter how good the clean and jerk variation felt or how nice it was for that bit of recovery, I have to make sure that I keep in mind of how much I want to be able to save to put into the rest of the exercise. You know, it's not just a clean and jerk day, it's a clean and jerk and a bench day. So I went into bench wanting to do a more explosive type lift, coincidentally. And I was going to do a pause at 90 degrees on the way back up, or not 90 degrees, just pause halfway on the way back up and then do a back down full, exactly how I did my front squat the other day, just to really isolate that middle position, that grind, you know, the sticking point. And I immediately started feeling a bit weak on my left. It just wasn't feeling great. It wasn't where I wanted it to be. And I was like, man, this might be the day that I have to try something new. So I just impulsively at 225, go to thumb's length And while my left was still tired, it typically is more when I've pushed it pretty hard. My left shoulder will get a bit more of the pressure than my right. It was much more consistent, you know? It's not like, I've had a lot of back and forth in the past year where my left has really suffered to keep up with how well my right sticks through the bench. And that's something I didn't really think that I would ever have to deal with. And so to see for the first time today, without even realizing I was lacking in this department, see that balance come back, Like doing a lift off the bench by myself doesn't really feel good on my shoulders because of how narrow my grip was. And it was so much easier just having just that 3/4 of an inch back, It feels really weird. This is why it's so hard to get like really excited and passionate on the first day you try something new, is because no matter how confident you are that it's the correct decision and how much that that's what you need to be doing, it's typically never going to feel great that first time you do it. I've gotten so used to doing the same technique for so long that it's kind of been alienated from my mind-muscle connection. I don't know what it feels like to do a thumb's length bench anymore. This is my first experience back. And the biggest thing that I notice that I really want to emphasize is the fact that my left shoulder specifically was using way more effort than my right. Not by like an amount that made it imbalanced or improper form, but I had my spotter look out for me, and I had to flare my left elbow more than my right. And I was like, shit, this is something that I've been feeling for a long time, but I'm actually recognizing it now. And when you finally start feeling those imbalances, those limitations, that's when you realize that you've got areas that you need to actually pay more attention to. It's not just a matter of giving it more deload time and more time to recover, more time to do heavyweight, whatever. With the closer grip, this narrow grip is isolated, or this thumb's length grip is now isolating my limitations and making me stronger in the ways that I've not had to worry about for the longest time. And I even though it felt really odd, really bad, this is why I tell you guys to record your shit. Even if you don't post, it doesn't matter. It's because you can look back and be able to compare just to yourself so that you know what it feels like and what it appears to look like. And man, I compared it to the last bench day I did on the normal program. And although I can't do as heavy a weight right now because I'm hitting muscle groups I haven't hit in, a year and a half? The consistent explosiveness and drive off of today's bench was definitely much better than the bench from a couple weeks ago. And not because I'm stronger today. I'm actually weaker today because I haven't used these muscle groups in so long. But it's the fact that my limbs were just realigned in the positions they needed to be in. Putting your elbow vertical with your wrist is integral for a proper drive to the bench. It's just getting used to having that, even though this is less range of motion technically than a more narrow grip when it comes to the depth of my elbows, it's now become a larger range of motion for my chest. And I don't do chest, guys. I'm an Olympic lifter. I do shoulders at the most compared to everything else. And man, it's different. It's different. Let me tell you, when you really feel that sticking point, and just like even though I was so burnt, even though I was so tired, I still had that extremely solid sticking point. There was no extra pressure and pain on my wrist. There was nothing really holding me back other than the fact that my chest and the parts of my delts that I haven't used in over a year are finally getting some mind-muscle connection back. And the fact that my left had to work so much harder than my right means that it's starting to balance back out, which is an incredible discovery. The fact that I have inadvertently found a way to balance out my limited areas strength-wise, the main muscle groups that haven't really been aligned for a long while, without having to do some extra accessories on the side. A lot of people will be like, oh, just do dumbbells, do banded stuff, do all these extra bullshit. And a lot of the times it just comes more from a sense of you just might have that one lacking factor that takes over your technique without you realizing it for so long. Again, remember, I just figured out that my right foot would go in front of my left on my walkout on back squat and front squat, and I've been doing it for years, like 5 to 6 years on that one, and I just figured it out. Who knows when that habit started? I can't know. I've never looked at my feet. It's always just been a mind-muscle connection. Just go where my body feels completely balanced. And I just accepted the fact that I might have a hip shift, when in reality, I had a fucking feet shift. My hips were never imbalanced. I never had a hip dip or a butt wink on my squat. It was just that one little change that made a whole world of difference. And unfortunately, the way I found out was my knee exploding. But now I'm on a path to no pain. Same thing with my bench. I mean, it's not really a coincidence that right after the bone growth happened and I changed up my bench grip, that I pulled my left pec 3 separate times almost. And I've still had consistent, not pain, but lack of strength in that left arm. So if this is going to be the way that I get that balance back, that structure, that stability, then yeah, I'm going to take the steps to get there. Damn it. But anyway, regardless of all of it, it's not as exciting of a day. I wasn't as pumped up, especially it being the last day of the week and my core being as burnt out as it is. I'm really excited to start out the new program, get to do something a little bit new. I'm going to work a little bit more with slight percentages, because the 20-pound jumps between every single lift, rather than adhering to the same percentage range per lift individually, I think has been limiting myself a bit, because the 20-pound jump on squat is not going to be the same as a 20-pound jump on snatch. It's going to be a lot different, and it's going to make me have to work a lot harder on snatch, but it's also going to make it to where my lighter days on squat are way heavier than they need to be, while my heavy days on snatch are way heavier than what they need to be, It's a lot of back and forth. So, physically, for today, just a very flat 8. Not exactly solid, but, it's the fact that I'm making progression that makes it feel so much better, And the power clean with the pause split jerk was really solid. I know I didn't give a lot of attention to it in the video today, but there just wasn't much to think about. I was just having fun, just doing a little something, not really stressing my legs out too much, and no pain in the knee, which is really great. Normally that's something that explosive and necessary of like a foot plant can put a bit more strain on that knee, but nothing today, which is awesome. So I'll take that as a big win. Mentally, I can give it a good 8.45. It was truly a great day. I actually met a really cool new dude. He was really, really cool. Great to get to know someone it's just one of the best feelings when you just easily shoot the shit with someone and not have to worry about it. On top of him allowing me to, express my frustrations about the bench and my growth and my progression in real time while he spotted me. It was really, really nice and relatable to get to just be able to do that without having to wait to do one of these videos, talk about it, figure it out, and then come back next week. And again, it's always going to be a struggle when you first try something new, but you have to give it at least that one cycle back to really attempt it, to really get a good feel for it. Because I'm going to keep the weight at it'll be like a 3x5 at 295 this upcoming week. Typically it would have been a 3x6 there. So I'm going to just keep it there so I don't overdo it and I can really figure out the technique. The new program's going to be based around a 5-3-1 split for the squat and bench lifts for a little while, just to try something new, because the volume of sets of 6 and 4 just haven't been that fun. They've been more fatiguing than anything with the Olympic lifts paired with all that. So we're going to just feel it out. I'm not really going to stress about it. I'm just going to really focus on this next program, doing jumps of 5% of my maxes instead of just a random 20 pounds with the 5-3-2 split, just enjoying it, not stressing, just getting to feel out every single bit of it at the rate that I want to, at the rate that I deserve to. So let me know how your lives and lifts been going. Love hearing about it. Thanks for letting me get that shit out, because I needed to yap, man. I needed that out. Not a lot of philosophy today, just a lot of just really understanding where my body's at. But it's going to come back. This day, although really hard on my pecs and a little bit harder on my left than I'm used to, is going to be the reason why it stabilizes next week. And thankfully, my next bench day will be a recovery bench, so I won't have to worry about doing anything heavy. So I will be back, as always. Tomorrow's rest day, so I'll be back for my heavy bench, or my heavy snatch day, of the first day of the new program when I get back. And I'll always be back. I always got to keep coming back. I love this shit too much. I don't care if I'm fucking injured out the ass. I got to come back. So I love you guys. See you later. Bye.